Hello, this is the end of the book. This is the author's note. Here's a picture to show you. Yeah, there's Ranger and the little kit and the quilt square. You see that? All right. This is the author's note. The author did a lot of research to write this book. She went to some museums and things about the Oregon Trail. So this is what she's writing about what was real about it. Imagine saying goodbye to your house, almost all of your friends and extended family, and most of your possessions. Imagine leaving everything you know to begin a long, long journey to a new home in a place you've never seen. The decision to set out on the Oregon Trail must have been a difficult one to make, but thousands of families like the Abbotts made that choice in the mid-1800s. Sam and his family are fictional, but their story is inspired by the diaries and journals of many real-life people who wrote a little bit each night as they traveled west on the overland trails. And that led not only to the Oregon Territory, but also to California and the Great Salt Lake. The trip usually took about 5 months. 5 months, that's only 1 month short of a half of a year. That's a long time to walk. That's if everything went well. Bad weather, disease, and trouble with livestock could all slow down the pace of travel. Like Sam's family, many people traveled in mixed groups, often with different destinations. In the earliest days of the trail, many families were heading to the Oregon Territory for farmland. Starting in 1846, they were joined by Mormons like Sarah's family, who were bound for the Great Salt Lake area to escape religious persecution. When gold was discovered in California in 1849, another group of travelers headed west. The Beard brothers in the book are fictional. They're not real. But they represent the thousands of men and some women too who left their homes to search for fortune in the California gold rush. Many people started their journeys in one of the towns known as jumping off points. While Sam's family set off from Independence, Missouri, others chose to leave from St. Joseph, Missouri, or Council Bluffs, Iowa. Wherever the trip started, the preparations looked much the same. Most families used a guidebook like the one the Abbotts carry. Theirs was written by Joel Palmer, who traveled west in 1845 and 1846. These guidebooks suggested routes and strategies. They also gave lists of needed supplies and directions for setting up a wagon. Palmer and other real-life immigrants wrote about lots of animals in their journals. They described prairie dog towns and buffalo stampedes. They wrote about gathering buffalo dung for fuel, circling wagons at night, and listening to the wolves howl. The snowball fight Sam's family has in this book is based on one of the real stories from Margaret Frink that was described in her trail diary in 1850. This was they were camping near the Platte River in June. At dark, while I was cooking supper, a heavy storm of wind and snow came up. There was no shelter, and we ate our supper while it was snowing and blowing. During the night, the men took turns guarding the horses in the snow, Mr. Frink being with them part of the time. Tuesday, June 18th. This was a bright June morning. We snowballed each other till 10 o'clock, when the sun got too warm for the snow to remain. Diseases were a constant worry on the trail. The cholera that leaves Sarah an orphan and the mountain fever that nearly kills Sam are just two examples. Today, historians and scientists understand the causes for those illnesses, which are no longer the great threat they were in the 1850s. Today's experts know that unsanitary conditions and contaminated drinking water contributed to the cholera epidemic. So cholera came from unsanitary conditions, which is what we're dealing with now with the coronavirus, where you need to wash your hands. You need to make sure things are clean. They didn't have those things then because they were in the river. A lot getting water and all of those things. So then we also learned, remember on the Mayflower, how the water would get bugs in it sometimes and it would be gross. Well, sometimes their water got bad too, and that's how people got sick. So you need to keep washing your hands and using clean utensils and plates and everything. They also believed that tick bites were most likely the cause of one kind of mountain fever. Today we call that Rocky Mountain spotted fever. While some pioneer families worried about encounters with Native Americans along the trail, most who traveled around 1850 had experiences similar to the Abbotts. More than 20 different tribes lived and passed through the areas around the Oregon Trail. The Sioux, the Shoshone, they are the ones that helped Sam's family, and they're frequently mentioned in real historical diaries from this time period. They traded with travelers, served as guides, and assisted with river crossings. In the later days of immigration, there was more tension. Violence between the two groups became very common, especially after the U.S. government began sending more soldiers west, and some military commanders broke their promises that they had made with the tribes. In researching Ranger and Sam's adventure, that's the author, her name is Kate Messner, it's right there on the book. I became immersed in diaries, journals, trail guides, maps, and artifacts. The National Frontier Trails Museum and Merrill J. Mates Research Library in Independence, Missouri served as an amazing time machine, plunging me back to the days of the Oregon Trail. One of the people I met in those faded journals was Lizzie Charlton, a real-life teenager who traveled west with her family in 1866. Sam's ever-complaining older sister was inspired by the real Lizzie's journals. So here's a picture of one of the journals. I don't know if you're going to see that very well, but that's a picture. And the person's wearing gloves to protect the paper so it doesn't get destroyed. And then there's a journal here that says, April the 19th, last night it rained and made the road so muddy we did not start until noon. We traveled 14 miles today and it rained all day. It is so cold we'd like to freeze to death. April 20th, this morning is still cold enough for winter. We traveled until 2 o'clock today. It was so disagreeable and cold we had to stop the rest of the day. And then they go to May 14th, from April 20 to May 14. Camped for a night on the bank of the Platte River. It looks very much like we might have a storm tonight. Came 18 miles today through sand and mud holes till there was no name for it, and I am very tired of walking. And the rest of it, the author is thanking all of the people who helped her out. And she's also talking about how much she loves dogs and about some of the things we learn about dogs who can help people and help track people. So here's a picture of the author at the bottom there, and she's with a dog named Oakland. Oakland is a dog that is used to help find missing people. Remember how Ranger helped find the little girl who was gone? So anyway, this is the end of our story, Ranger in Time on the Oregon Trail. If you come in to get any books from me, there are more Ranger in Time books to be had, and the next time we'll start a new book. I hope you guys are having a good time. I really miss you. Bye.